Yeah, so I think the important thing initially is it's not about being on the platform, because that's easy. You can sign up and you can pay for Instagram or Twitter ads in 5 seconds, but that's not going to solve your world. The first thing is your brand, whether that's you as an individual, whether it's you as a small business owner, whether it's you as an enterprise, is what is the brand that you want to represent? Because people, you need to look good and you need to look consistent. That's the part of branding, right? Is consistency is a
Hi all, welcome to Engati Engage. I am Drishti Shah from the Engati team and would like to begin with just a quick intro of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by INC.com, Tech World, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati Engage podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest, Moyse has been a leader in the cloud industry. With an experience of over 12 years, he sat on the boards for Eurocloud, FAST, and the Cloud Industry Forum. An experienced keynote speaker on cloud and social selling, he also has been a judge on the UK Cloud Awards. Ian has been recognized as #1 global SaaS influencer by Cloud, #1 cloud social influencer from 2015 to 2017 by Analytica. He has also been recognized as a leading cloud blogger and was listed in EMEA Top 50 Influencers in Data Centers, Cloud, and Data 2017. Additionally, he is a writer for Cloud Tech and has been published by the National Computing Center. He was awarded as UK Sales Director of the Year by Institute of Sales Management and is widely known as a leading social seller, sitting as a non-exec on Digital Leadership Associates, amongst others. So hi, Heian. We are really thrilled to have you on Engati.
Hi, thanks. Sounds like I've been busy, right?
Yeah. So starting with the first question that we have for you is that social media is huge and there is no stopping it right now. So how can businesses leverage it?
Yeah, and I think with the situation, depending when people are listening to this, the situation obviously that with COVID that we're in as we speak, or we were in, if you listen to this at a later time and whenever that be, has accelerated everything digital. The digital world has and communication digitally and interaction has just expanded. Right, we're as a couple of years ago there was a BBC newsreader on TV. Went viral, world famous, right? Where his kids ran in the room behind him because he was remotely being interviewed.
Yeah.
Now that would not get any coverage at all, right? Because that is all of us. So we thought it was funny 2 years ago. That's had millions and millions of views because it was an extraordinary circumstance. But now we all appreciate how difficult it is, and we all appreciate that the world has changed, and we're all working digitally. We're doing this digitally, remotely. Social media has its good and bad, right? There's a lot of fake news getting spread about what's happening at the moment on there, and people misinterpreting medical news, etc. But it's got its place, and social media is a wide topic because it means different things to different people. So, for example, there are social media stars. There's the Kardashians, right? It's probably the pinnacle where that was first heard of, where they have made themselves a global brand on TV, which a lot of it was on people with social initially. And there are social media stars who've been YouTubers, or they've been, through gamers, or they've been Instagrammers through fashion and doing makeup lessons or whatever, where they've become, because of what they did, and they've become known for it and got a following. They've monetized and they're now sponsored, and brands pay them to wear clothes or do this, whatever. And they've become semi-celebrities, and some of them have appeared on TV shows, and because they've become into the public eye, they've got such a following of millions and millions. Some of them have got bigger followings than some TV and movie stars. So social media has changed the dynamic on its head, and I think a lot of people in business have struggled to find its fit. Where does this fit in our model? But what you've got to understand is, what I say to people is, it's not about whether you want to change, it's has your customer changed? Has the buyer persona, whether it's B2B or B2C, have they changed in where they get their information? And if you go and have a look at who your customer is, whether it be either of those two personas or dynamics, have a look at who they follow, right? Who influence. That's why you get a lot of companies paying what's called a social influencer to wear their product or to write about their product or to test their product. You know, there's kids online who are young kids who test toys and talk about them and unwrap them, and manufacturers send them the latest toy and go, please will you do mine, and we'll pay you to do it, because the audience they get is the audience they want. Whereas previously you'd have run an advert for that on a TV, you know, TV or billboard advertising for a product. But if your audience, your target customer, is following or is getting their information from somewhere else, how do you leverage that somewhere else or different platform or different medium to your advantage? And lots of people now get their news from social media platforms, right? They get their local news from that, certainly. Some of them get their national news. And I see a lot of stuff on there where the first time I see a piece of news, and everyone listening, think about this. Do you remember a time when the first time you've seen a piece of news, Trump's latest speech or whatever, did you see the speech, or did you see someone tweet about it, or a Facebook post saying, have you heard this, or where did you first get it? You may have then gone and watched it on a more traditional platform, but where did you first hear a piece of important news?
Yeah, it's
right?
media.
And it's often on social media, which then draws you to either click through and go to something, or go and listen to it on the radio, TV, or whatever, or newspaper. And go, oh my God, what's the detail around this? And you'll go and then want the detail. So it's huge. You're right, and it's because of what we're going through. It's growing, but it's evolving and changing in people's use. And it's not just social media. It's, as we spoke about on our podcast together, it's about personal branding. How do you appear as a brand, as a customer, as an individual human on the platform? So if you're going to engage with someone, if you're going to, whether it's you're sharing some content yourself, or whether you're responding or commenting, how do you look on those platforms? So social media for me encompasses social media, but also personal branding. Because if you're on it, you have a profile. How do you look? And people will find you and see you on there. So you got to think about how you look as a business and a company, which then leads into how you use those platforms to engage your customer and communicate with them. Do you just use it as a push mechanism? So rather than having a newsletter, perhaps, where you have to get them to subscribe and opt in for data legality reasons now and GDPR and all this stuff, do you, instead of doing that, do you, as many brands have done, say, no, we're on social media, follow us? Because the fact you follow us now says we don't have to have a subscriber list. We don't have to ask your permission, because we just publish. Your pulling and listening to it is your choice. In which case, do you use it for support? Do you use it for, this is the place we're going to tell you when something happens? You know, and do your customers expect that? Yeah. So you can use these platforms in it doesn't just need to be for publishing marketing stuff. It can be for a support perspective, right? If your product and audience lends itself to that, you can support your product through social media. It might be a good mechanism for posting, here's the latest video on how to do this with our product. And I see a lot of innovative technology products doing that right now, you know, around, you know, new cameras or drones that come out, where most of their interaction isn't through an online forum. It's through it's follow us on this social platform, and we'll publish the instructions on YouTube or Vimeo, but we'll publish that's available on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. That's where you get everything about us. That's our newsletter. And that's how we interact with you. The question then becomes, do you allow the customer to interact with you in reverse? Do you allow DMs back to you? Do you allow them to log support tickets through that mechanism? In which case it becomes important to communicate to your customer, how do we tell you things, and how do we expect you to tell us things? Which platforms do you use for us? You know, do you use the website forum, or do you use DM, or do you use a chatbot to communicate with us? So it's important with all this new tech, I think, in interacting in a business, of figuring out what's your customer dynamic, what type of customer do you have, and what would be the most appropriate platform and medium, and what's the, you know, a Twitter DM on something. If you have simple products, which you typically get simple questions, could be easy. If you've got very, very complex enterprise 20 level deep stuff, it's not the format to have those conversations, because it's not a conversation. You know, you probably want to use a phone, or if you're not in that time way that you can do that, use a chatbot or something where you can interact with the client more appropriately. So they all have their place depending on your product, service, whether it's marketing to, whether it's or whether it's selling support. What are you using it for? And that will tell you which platforms are most appropriate, and how you utilize that platform as well. Do you use a chatbot where it's only for certain things, for example, but it's AI based? Because all that 99% of the questions we get, we can totally route them and AI them to knowledge articles and push back to videos and whatever. Or is 99% of people that come onto a chatbot, it needs a live agent, because if they come that route, they're probably complaining, and we need to have that efficacy of a human being dealing with it, an emotion. Or do you need phone calls for certain things, which escalate from a chatbot through omni-channel into a phone call? And there's no one or wrong answer. It depends on the nature of your business and your customer as to which is the appropriate route and methodology to take.
Yeah, that's true. So, knowing about social media, so how should they, start building their brand? And if you could suggest some hacks on how to go about that.
Yeah, so I think the important thing initially is it's not about being on the platform, because that's easy. You can sign up and you can pay for Instagram or Twitter ads in 5 seconds, but that's not going to solve your world. The first thing is your brand, whether that's you as an individual, whether it's you as a small business owner, whether it's you as an enterprise, is what is the brand that you want to represent? Because people, you need to look good and you need to look consistent. That's the part of branding, right? Is consistency is a DNA of branding. And too often I see people make one of two mistakes. There's a hint here: is either they're on every social platform for the sake of being on them, which we spoke about before, and they do them all poorly because they're on them. Tick a box. We've made them look good, but we don't put very good content on them. We're not consistent. We don't understand that the different platforms need different types of content. Instagram needs an image, right? And you don't then put a whole load of content behind it. It might be an image to something that's relevant and it's exciting, but it's the image that may link then to a video and whatever, or you may post a video. Twitter is, whilst they've extended the character set from 140 to 280, it's still not the place for masses of comms where you put on a blog. Facebook is so each one has its own dynamic.
Yes.
And if you go onto all four, too often I see companies say, right, now what we'll do is we'll got a piece of content, we'll post it on all four, and it looks the same on all four. And on one of them it looks appropriate, and the others it just looks wrong, because we just cross-pollinated it across them. So you need to think about, image sizes, or all of that stuff. They all behave differently.
Yeah.
But you need to be on all the platforms. If 99% of I'd argue, let's pick a number. If 70% of your customers lead with Facebook, and that fits your B2C market and where they'd expect to find you, okay, and then 18% will be on Instagram, great, that's most of your business coverage. Don't be on the other platforms.
Yeah.
You don't have to do them. You don't have to have a profile there for the sake of it, or have a profile there as the company profile for LinkedIn, for example, but emphasize, put it clear on there, our customer communications and newsletter content will only be posted to these platforms. Let customers know. Because if not, they will assume, if you're on a platform, they assume I can interact with you there. You haven't told me any different. And I've had that problem live before, right? I contacted a business, I remember, a couple of years ago with a product that had failed, within warranty, all the rest of it, short-term failure after getting it. And on their website, there's a form. Any problems, do this. So I submitted the form. And I didn't get a response, did get a response, and eventually remembered, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't heard from them. Let's say a month, 6 weeks later, right, where's a phone number? It's not easy to find, but I'll dig around. I found a phone them. And they said, oh, yeah, no, we can't get that out to you now. It's Christmas. We're stocks. We won't be able to get that product to your replacement for another 4 or 5 weeks. Okay, but you should have phoned us.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I logged the ticket ages ago. They said, no, for urgent stuff like that, you should phone us. And my argument to them was, how did I know that?
Yeah.
You made it harder to find the number, And the easiest thing I found to communicate was a web form. It could have been a social account, whatever. And there was nothing there that said, do not support. Either you didn't block me on, you can block people sending a DM, right? That, or you didn't put anything to say, do not support tickets here. Or if I send a DM via Twitter, do an auto tweet back that you've configured to say, I'm afraid we don't support this issue here, or you should submit this ticket via this. Help me to help myself to better engage with you as the business. And that's the danger of these platforms. They set and they make it very easy to use them and to take advantage, but they make it very easy also to fall into pitfalls of misuse and assumption. Not because you've done anything maliciously wrong. You don't know what you don't know if you haven't done it before and you haven't learned the hard way, or you haven't had good advice. And too often we see it. We see a website where they've got every social platform up. You go and look at them. They're either inactive or poorly used, poorly presented, and you only have to communicate with them over it, and you'll realize you'll never get a response. So it's a sanity thing to have this. And the same with AI, I'd argue, right? As part of this in chatbots, whatever the communication method is, it's not about the fact you can afford the technology today. Everything is more affordable than it's ever been before because of cloud technologies, etc. It's not about affordability. It's about, okay, there's a bit of tech. The tech needs, you need to make the right decision of the right tech for the right place, for the right customer you're serving. And then you need to configure it appropriately to do what you hoped it to do. What is the objective of being on this, using this tech or being on this platform? What's your overall objective? Okay, and how are you going to achieve that? And that isn't just turning it on or buying a piece of tech. And that's the mistake I've seen people making too often and in this new world.
Yeah, that is it's like when you are picking up a social media, you should be going all out in there and just be having a presence won't mean that you will start getting business from there. You have to maybe a community building sort of thing, so that people, and also the company capacity to handle that community responses also.
Absolutely, and you've got to give value to the audience listener. If you think of a TV channel that has really poor content and sometimes isn't on air, how often are you going to tune into that channel? It's as simple as that, right? So if you create a Twitter account, what's the value to your customer? Not the value to you in the sanity of, oh, great, when we're doing this. If you've got no followers, no engagement, you're not giving value to anyone. Why are you doing it? If you do get your customers onto it and say, this is where our newsletter will be. So you 3,000 people that now use our newsletter, please subscribe here, and you see 2,000 subscribe. Great. You can now send content to them more often, more quickly, but it's a different type of content than a newsletter. And you've got to think about then the content that you create being of value to your audience, like you're creating these videos and podcasts and webinars. It's what value does it give to the audience? Because for them, if they get value, they come back again. If they get value, they engage with you. And that's what it's about. It's about engagement, not the fact you're doing it for your sake. It's for your customer's sake.
That's true. So, talking about using technology, so how can chatbots be used to help in this whole process?
Yeah, so I think it's about where they fit in your process with your customers, right? And we now live in a multi-channel or omni-channel world. There's slightly differences to those, but people can go and look those up. There's your homework if you haven't picked that up. But we live in a world where all of us as individuals and business, and when we communicate with business, we all have, right? We'll have a smartphone or a phone of some mobile device. Yes. Everyone listening probably has at least one social account, and you'll have an email address. You might have multiple, a work one and a private one. You might have, and then when you engage with a company, you go to engage with them, you are choosing. You have a problem. I want to buy a product. I want to ask a question about a product. I want to ask an inquiry about when your engineer can visit. Whatever it is, you want to engage with them in some way, which isn't just reading their website. Yes. Then how are you going to do it? And you've got web form, email, chatbot, phone. You could visit them if it's an Apple store type thing, right? You might decide, I've looked on the web, I'll go and physically visit. You've got social media platform. You've got this wide spectrum now, whereas not so long ago, it would often be you had the phone. You know, it wasn't long ago, you had a phone and a fax, and that was the only way of communicating through the telecoms networks. Then email came along. We've constantly developed. Now you can argue we've also got Snapchat, you've got WhatsApp that are encroaching into the business world more and more, depending on the dynamic of your customer.
Yes.
So, you know, you've got to think about, back to your question of AI and chatbots, where does that fit in that scheme of things, in the way it's going to serve the customer? What you don't want to do is you just put one up for the sake of it and go, well, we've got a chatbot, tick. Yeah. You know, is a chatbot, is the nature of the engagement the customer has with you one that a chatbot best supports, because perhaps they ask lots of questions that are on your knowledge base, but people don't find them or don't go and look for them? Great. So you could put a chatbot on and say, if you have a question, and the great thing about that, of course, you can pop that up at different points of their journey when they engage with you, wherever that may be, whether it be on mobile or on a PC web type interface. You can look at, actually, they've clicked on this pattern. This typically means people are digging for this.
Yeah.
They've done 3 searches now that you could pop up and say, are you not finding what you need? What is the specific thing? And I'll help you. And then take them through a few diagnostic questions that perhaps they're not asking themselves, that either direct them to a self-serve or do filter. Actually, we think because you're not understanding what you need to look for, we better put you onto a human being. Let's direct you to a live agent on chat, and that may escalate via another priority to a live person, right? Depending again on the product and the business model.
Yes.
Because sometimes customers can't self-serve, but they don't realize they can't self-serve. So they're going to keep looking for the next 5 hours, and your brand gets a bad feeling for it through no fault of your own, because they don't have the technical capacity with what they're trying to do, perhaps, to understand whereas 5 minutes on a phone call, etc. And then you might redirect them to a video. Who knows, right? You might say, actually, you want to come over here to our YouTube channel, where we've got simpler videos in smaller steps, where our normal customer who's more technical is happy to go straight into the manuals and the technology. That's not going to help you because you don't understand what you're reading. So we need to take you a different journey and route. So I think chatbots absolutely have their place, particularly in out of hours with AI, when you can self-serve and get some sort of meaningful dialogue going with a client. But you've got to have the wrap around that of only use them where they're appropriate. You know, I wouldn't use it where, for example, I'm trying to sell someone something and it's actually the selling process.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if it's questions about a product, well, what's the price on this? Great, you can answer. That's just question and answer. But if the customer needs convincing, you know, it needs to be sold on the value and the ROI, and I need to ask them questions. It becomes harder, even though AI is improving every day. It becomes harder to proactively ask those questions, and sometimes things are better done by a human being, right? Even if it is using chat as a technology. And I think that's the hard part for some businesses. I've seen some be over promised and oversold on some of this stuff, that it's just buy it out of the box and it all handles itself because they've seen what Amazon's achieved. But it's not necessarily, you know, if you've got the resource, the technical capacity and the money, you can do anything. But it's where does it fit in your business? But I think what it can do, particularly in today's time where most businesses have got challenges around, we want to serve our customer. We don't want to purposely treat our customer badly, but it's harder than ever before because we've got remote workers who may be in a position where the phone isn't the easiest dialogue because they've got the dog barking. And whilst people may be more tolerant, you can choose to go, if I can get them to help customers over a chat, they may need a phone call, but it will reduce the number of calls where there's awkwardness going on of background noise and distractions. Chat's easier to manage that, right? Because I'm talking to you live. So it is a live, dialogue. It's not an email deferred dialogue where you email me something and I send something back later, which answers a different question because I misunderstood what you said. We can have dialogue, but you're not hearing the background noise and distractions. I can be here answering your question and telling the kids to stop jumping on that and do that and put that down and all the usual stuff, the real world experience. but you don't know that's happening. You feel like we're fully engaged.
That's right.
So it has right now. I think it has a different dynamic than it may have perceivably only a few months ago.
Yeah. That the scenario would have been different before COVID-19, but I think right now when we are all working from home, something coming as a chat support that is like a real development, and also it brings value to your customers also.
Yeah, I agree.
So coming back to social media, so how important is content creation?
Yeah, so I think content creation is important, but I context it with content that has value to your audience. Again, too many people are churning out lots of content for content's sake, and it's just not good content. Or people want insight. What people look for from content today is insight, is value.
Yeah.
What have I learned from this content? What can I do that I couldn't do before? And too many people, I think, get on social. Now let's create content. And a lot of the content they push out is all about them. Look how great we are, etc. So one of the hacks and tips I give is you want to think about the balance of content and the type that you share. So for example, there's a 4-1-1 rule. So for every 3 pieces of content you share about other things that aren't about you, you can share something about your company. We won this customer, we won this award. But the other bits want to be, here's a blog that's about how to do this.
Yeah.
And it's got your name and brand on it, but it isn't, come and see this blog. Oh, it sounds great. It's not clickbait that when they get there, 99% of it is about one paragraph. This is what you should do. And the reason you should do it is you should talk to us and do this and buy our product. Well, I've had so many of those where I've opened a piece of content or downloaded something. This sounds great. This sounds really informative. The title sounds great. 10 things you must know now about customer experience in 2020, whatever.
Yeah.
And 9 of them are buy our product. Well, that's not giving me any value, actually. What you want is 10 genuine insights. And by the way, it came from this company, so I remember you. HubSpot, I give an example, is great at creating positive, that sort of content where you get it and there's stuff in there and it's not an advertorial. So you want content that gives true value. Back to who's your persona of your audience? What do you want to give them? So you share something. You might share something about, you want to have a personality as your brand. So for me, it might be I share something about here's a new blog with some great content about selling techniques in this, etc. Here's a blog, or you can reshare someone else's, right? Someone else's content isn't competitive for you. Here's a great video we saw on how to do this that fits our industry or sector. It could be, here's a great video we saw right now. There's nothing wrong with your company. Here's a great video we saw, the best one we found about working from home and the top 5 tips. Not your content, nothing to do about your product, but something that is of value to your audience because you know it is. Because we're all in the same boat right now. So it's about sharing things that the audience will want to keep listening to and keep following. They're not going to go, everything you post out about is just totally irrelevant to me. I'm unfollowing you, because it's just, you get, if something's in their feed from you, if you share 20 pieces of content and 2 or 3 of them aren't relevant, that's fine. It's no different than watching TV and the adverts come on, right? And we don't all want to watch all the adverts, but because the program around it has got value, or you don't say, I'm never watching this program again because I don't like the adverts that are on amongst it, or the company that sponsors the program. The value is greater than the deficit. That's all you got to do. And then in that mix of 1 in 4, by all means post something about you, because it won't be the only thing they see you posting. So that's your advert. There's your TV program. That's what I came to watch. And by the right of that, there's some advertising in between it, but I don't stop watching the program because of an advert, because most of what I get is the program.
Yes.
Right. So, and then it comes to it, how do you create that content, right? So you can look at internal. Often you've got people internally who you've never asked before, who are great experts on particular areas, who've got opinions, but because they don't work in your marketing department, they haven't been asked and haven't thought to volunteer. Go and ask, has anyone got anything? Run a contest internally. Submit a blog, write a blog, and the ones we get to use, we'll give you a $50 Amazon gift voucher or something. because the cost of creating content, if you go out externally, it's going to cost you anyway, or it's going to cost you in time. There's plenty. Or you can look externally. I do social influence and blogging in the technology space. So a lot of people reach out to me for cloud pieces. There's a lot you can go externally. You can do video material. If someone can't write very well, doesn't feel comfortable, you've got an exec that's an expert in your business, speaks at events brilliantly, but isn't good at writing. Ghost write it for them. Get them to talk to you, record it, ghost write it in marketing and put their name against it. Perhaps they just don't have time to do it. Get them on their phone, say to them, you're really great at it. When you're in the taxi or flight now isn't happening, right? But in normal times, I'd say, if you're on a flight, well, Mr. Exec, could you record just talking to the video yourself? Do some videos in the airline lounge, or just record the stuff. We're not going to use that, but I'll use it. We'll create a blog from it, but you can check it, and then we'll byline it to you. You can drive the creation of the content. Or what you need more is a voice, someone who's got something to say that will be of interest to your audience. It doesn't need to be them that has to be the writer of it or on the video. And tips I'll give around this is, there's a lot of tools on these right now. If you go and look on my YouTube channel, you'll see some videos on there. I did one recently for marketing tips for a website, and it ended up with a video, and I did it one morning, never done it before, purely with my phone, alone in a room, and I videoed myself. I had a weird, wacky idea. How do you grab people's attention on social? Well, it's video. So I interviewed myself. So I did the questions, leaving pauses and gaps. The camera was fixed with a remote so it didn't move. Then did the answers, sat here with a different jacket on, talking to myself. And that's on my YouTube channel. And that took me an hour to do, top to end, editing everything, using everything on a phone with free apps, titling everything. And I wasn't trained to do that. Anyone can create pretty good content today, even the solopreneur, the small business, without going out to massive cost and production companies. And right now with COVID, people are much more accepting of content at home, but you can still polish it up very quickly. Or go on a site called Fiverr or 5 Squid, and you can outsource to expertise around the world. Right, it's like an Amazon for people with expertise in Photoshop and video editing and writing blogs and whatever. And a lot of material you'll see on my social accounts, I've had people reach to me saying, the content brilliant, that video with the this animation or whatever it is, wow, how much. They're expecting me to say thousands or whatever, and I say £5, what, or £10. And all I did was found someone on one of these sites and said, could you do it with my logo and this, and off they go and do it for you. You can create today, either yourself using apps on a phone or through third parties, some really interesting, innovative content. Really interesting. Stop motion photography, easy, free app. Do it with your Lego characters, right? Depends on your audience and what you're trying to produce. But you can be very creative without spending either anything or anything that matters.
Yeah, that is true. Today, we are actually in a phase where we are stuck in COVID-19, but we are lucky enough that we have technology with us and we can leverage it to the maximum and use it productively. Because if it was 50 years back from now, I don't know what we as humans would have done and how we would have recovered from it.
Yeah, well, how would you have done no one can get a shopping delivery right now anyway, but Amazon. I hope I'm not the only one, but I've spent an awful lot on Amazon, that they'll be glad to hear, over this period, because you run out of something, whether it be batteries for the kids' toy, right? Or the kids have been good and you want something for them to do. You want to get a new puzzle or a bit of Lego or something. We've all been told only essential shopping. So going to the shops to get certain stuff doesn't fit. But how easy is it? Amazon, 2 seconds, great, and it comes tomorrow with Prime. So it's become more of a necessity, a service, than a luxury, right, to be buying from these platforms. And you can buy books to read or whatever. All the things that you took for granted before, You don't need to go out for. And food, if you can get a delivery slot, you can do that online, do all your shopping electronically. All of that. You're right. How would we have done that not so long ago? Because everything was physicality driven. And I think that everyone's got to appreciate the way that cloud technology and the underlying platforms have enabled us to do this, and even supported the volume that we've had. Everyone has gone onto these platforms we're on now, Zoom, Teams, Hangouts, in a mass exodus that none of those vendors could have catered for. If this was the software world, what would have had, how would you have done it, right? Everyone says, well, it would have been a shortage. You couldn't buy it. Oh, we need compute power. You can't buy it. Now, on-demand compute power, these platforms have overnight just worked for millions of extra users. And we're talking now without problem, without delay, but there's more people on this platform we're using right now to record this than there's ever been in history before as we speak. And there's no problem with it. It works. And that's because of the luxury we've got, how technology has evolved with cloud elastic computing in the last few years. So you're right, thank ourselves that this wasn't 10-15 years ago. This would have been a very different experience.
Definitely. So concluding the interview, what other thoughts you would like to share with our audiences?
So I give two, I guess, to wrap up. One is think about what you're doing during this period. If it is still during COVID as you listen to this, utilize the benefit of all this technology to learn something, to develop yourself, to go out and get more information, whether it be develop your personal brand, go and read up on social selling, figure out how you use chatbots, etc. You've got time that you can still make productive business use of, because you still want to have a business to come back to. You still want to have a career to come back to. This isn't take 3, 4 or 5 months holiday and make no use of it. I would argue you should be working harder now than you do in your normal time if you can. I respect that some business people have been furloughed because of the nature of their business, in which case my advice would be, that's fine, you can't do your existing job, or you may not have a job already to go back to, which we're all fortunate if we're not in that position. But you can do something about it. You can take action now and go and learn a language, go and learn, take a new certification for your whatever you're in. Get yourself to be in a stronger position coming out of this. That's number one. Number two is, in personal branding, go and take a look at my social accounts. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. Every day I see something someone else has done and I plagiarize it. It's like, I like that. That's a good idea. I'm going to do that. Right. So I'm still learning all the time how to keep tuning. So it isn't about set your accounts up and go, well, I've done, look how great I am. It's how do I keep learning something new? How do I learn a new way of doing this and stay ahead of the game? But go to my website. If you go to ianmoyse.co.uk or ianmoyse.cloud, they will take you straight to my LinkedIn and Twitter accounts. There's a hint in itself. As an individual, you can personally brand by buying your own domain name. Very cheap, very easy, and just route it to your social account. So I don't say here, go onto LinkedIn, search my name, find me, maybe find a couple of other people with the same name, check which one it is. Why should I've taken that customer experience pain away from you and told you, go to ianmoyse.co.uk and you will find me guaranteed straight to me, or ianmoyse.cloud. It's not I've made the experience more pleasurable to find my profile. And when you get there, you'll find they're all linked to each other. So if you want to find me on any platform, you will find me active on each platform. The content that's relevant to that platform, with insightful, engaging content that looks interesting, through using things like Fiverr. So I eat my own dog food, and what I described is doing a personal brand, being engaging on social. Does take some effort, does take a little bit of money, but it's not much. I do it myself, right? You can do it very cost effectively, in a meaningful way, if you choose to. It's a choice. There is no barrier of technology to do this anymore.
Yeah, that's true. So thank you so much, Ian. I think our audiences will, enjoy the interview and your valuable insights and the good examples that you have given. I think that's really inspiring.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me on, and anyone who's taken the trouble to listen, I appreciate your time as well.
Thank you so much. So we'll be back with another episode of Engati Engage. So stay tuned. Thank you so much.